To thank you for years of dedication and support, I sent along a little surprise. Later this year, we'll be releasing the entire Infinity Saga on home video. And as you can imagine, it'll be jam-packed with extra features and footage that no one outside of Marvel Studios has ever seen. We actually have been around long enough now, we have a vault. And we pulled some things out of that vault that we said, we'll never show this to anybody, put it away. We're bringing them out, we're putting them on this disc, and I'm about to show you a deleted scene that has never been seen by anyone before right now. Thank you again so much, and enjoy.
Jarvis.
Welcome, Holmes.
Enjoy.
As if gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough, I have to deal with a spoiled brat who doesn't play well with others and wants to keep all his toys to himself.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Well, what are we avenging?
Whatever the hell we want. I am Iron Man. You think you're the only superhero in the world? Mr. Stark, you become part of a bigger universe. You just don't know it yet.
Who the hell are you?
Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Charlie. We have to talk about this bomb that Kevin Feige just dropped, revealing that they planned on Spider-Man and X-Men crossover from the very beginning of the MCU. There's a whole bunch of Spider-Man and X-Men Easter eggs and all this. We'll break it all down. The reason why we're just seeing this now is because, as he says, they're releasing an Infinity Saga box set with all 23 films. I've been waiting for them to do that, but they're putting a bunch of never-before-seen footage on that, and this is just a taste for what that is. So I will do a special giveaway for that giant box set when they release it. All you have to do to enter that is be a subscriber and leave your best theory about how they're going to introduce X-Men in the MCU. All our minds are blown by this, but breaking all the Easter eggs down top 5 style, as he says, as if gamma incidents, radioactive bug bites, and assorted mutants weren't enough, I have to play with a spoiled brat who doesn't play well with others and wants to keep all his toys to himself. Most of the rest of that scene goes down the same way we saw in the theatrical version. He says, "Who are you?" and he introduces himself as Nick Fury. "I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative." But in the deleted version after that, Iron Man says, "What the hell are we avenging?" and Nick Fury says, "Anything we want." The last line makes it sound like it's a super casual weekend job, so I think it was good that they got rid of that part and just cut it at the "I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers." Bam, slam to black. You also have to keep in mind when this Easter egg would have been happening as for what that crossover of X-Men and Spider-Man would have looked like. I'll talk about that in a second because it's really important. There's a reason why it's Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU and not another version of Spider-Man. But number 4, planning on X-Men and Spider-Man crossover from the very beginning back in 2007 when they were actually shooting this scene. Clearly, Kevin Feige had been planning on them eventually getting X-Men and Spider-Man in the MCU from the very beginning, otherwise they wouldn't have had Sam Jackson do this scene. They were filming this scene back in 2007, the movie came out the next year in 2008, they were 9 years away from Spider-Man crossover, and if we get some X-Men tail-end Marvel Phase 4, it will have been 14 to 15 years away from them filming this scene that they finally paid the Easter egg reference off. The gamma incidents that he references during that is obviously for the Incredible Hulk movie, for the Hulk crossover, which was going to happen a couple months after this scene debuted when that movie dropped June 2008. Radioactive bug bites obviously is the Spider-Man crossover Easter egg, Spider-Man bitten by a radioactive spider. The assorted mutants is the X-Men and Deadpool Easter egg. There are a couple reasons why he's generic with the mutants term, and he doesn't say X-Men specifically, but he's trying to refer to the larger body of X-Men and mutant characters because there's way more spin-off franchises from the mainstream X-Men characters. They use it mostly as an all-encompassing term, but also for legal reasons that I'll explain in a second. The writers and Kevin Feige were already playing it as safe as possible from a legal perspective by using as generic a term as possible in referencing the X-Men characters. Because 3, they shot this scene with the intention of putting it in that first Iron Man movie. They wouldn't have shot it just for fun because it costs so much money every minute that they're on set. What probably happened is they shot the scene in a couple different versions of the scene with the intention of putting it in the actual movie, then sent a cut of that scene to their lawyers at Marvel Studios to see if Fox and Sony could sue them out of existence just for mentioning Spider-Man, which was totally controlled by Sony at that time. This was right after Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 3 had dropped, when they were still developing the Amazing Spider-Man reboot with Andrew Garfield, in between X-Men The Last Stand, which almost killed that franchise, and X-Men Origins Wolverine, which almost killed the Wolverine franchise.
Hey, it's me. Don't scratch. Just cleaning up the timelines.
So you have to imagine that Kevin Feige is watching the X-Men and the Spider-Man characters slowly burn to the ground around him, sitting in his office, seeing how poorly they're being received, secretly hoping that eventually there'd be some deal that they could work out to share the characters and they could pay off this Easter egg, which originally they intended to actually put in the film. Two, a lot of you probably know some of the backstory and how that wound up happening. It took the Sony hack and the failure of the Spider-Man franchise after Amazing Spider-Man 2 for Sony to be willing to come to the table. And even though Amy Pascal in all these interviews for Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home is a huge Kevin Feige fan in present day, at the time when they were negotiating to get Spider-Man in the MCU, she was still head of the studio. She hadn't been pushed out yet, and they had some fierce battles during the negotiation process. There's the infamous story about her throwing a sandwich at Kevin Feige across the boardroom table.
I think that we've been friends for a long time. We've been fellow Spider-Man lovers for a long time. And Kevin came to me with a really fabulous idea. And ideas are everything.
Bringing Spider-Man into the universe where he belongs, as all the fans know, interacting with the other characters for the very first time, and it seemed like the right time to do it.
Had the Spider-Man franchise been doing really well at that point after Amazing Spider-Man 2, they would have gone on to do their Sinister Six spin-off franchise. There's no way they would have agreed to share that character. It's just evidence that Marvel has been trying to make deals with Fox and Sony to get their characters in the MCU since the very beginning of the MCU. It's just taken this long to see that all happen. That's how slow things move in Hollywood. In the original version of events, where this scene winds up in the theatrical cut of Iron Man, they canonized mutants, X-Men, Spider-Man in the MCU. They probably would have introduced them in a very House of X type of way that's happening in the comics right now. They just rebooted X-Men in the Marvel Comics. The story now is that Professor X has been using his abilities to hide things about mutants from the world, and one day he just flips that switch on and everybody realizes what's been going on this whole time. Is a very similar problem they have trying to integrate the Eternals characters into the MCU, which is going to happen during Marvel Phase 4. I've already done a video explaining that, like, why weren't they fighting during the Avengers Endgame final battle? The whole idea is that X-Men, mutants, the Eternals have been around this entire time, we just haven't known about it. Now, the X-Men explainer is a little bit different from the Eternals explainer, but it all builds on pre-existing continuity. So first you get the Eternals, you explain how the Celestials modified human DNA to create the Celestials, but also give humanity the X gene with their celestial energy. Then on top of that, you build with the idea that all the Infinity Gauntlet snaps released all that cosmic radiation, activating a lot of those X genes. So even though X-Men have been around this whole time in the MCU on planet Earth, you're just going to start seeing them now, in combination with a lot of pre-existing mutants revealing themselves, coming out of hiding. Like, oh, we didn't want to reveal ourselves because we're so different from humanity. In number one, probably the biggest thing is that originally, because the era when this Easter egg was happening, it was right around Tobey Maguire Spider-Man era, but before the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man reboot, it sounds like originally when Kevin Feige was thinking about bringing Spider-Man into the MCU circa Iron Man 1, he was thinking about the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. If that doesn't blow your mind, there's actually been somebody that's been doing deep fakes of Tobey in the MCU recently. It's surreal to watch him walking around during the Endgame battle, him with the Infinity Gauntlet snapping everyone. And on the X-Men side of this, which X-Men characters would have been popping up? Because the Deadpool character had not debuted yet in Wolverine Origins, so Deadpool was nowhere to be found. He hadn't blown up yet. We're talking about core X-Men characters. And because it was happening after X-Men Last Stand had just happened and that franchise was on the way down, it sounds like Kevin Feige had originally envisioned the Bryan Singer X-Men cast with Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, and all those characters to come into the MCU. If you didn't know it too, Kevin Feige got his start producing films with Lauren Shula Donner, who was a producer on the first Bryan Singer X-Men film, so Kevin Feige got to be a producer on set. Sort of a beginning for modern comic book films, along with that first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film. So Kevin Feige has been doing X-Men stuff since the very beginning. That's what he got to start at before he went over to Marvel, before that became Marvel Studios. So this all goes way back. There's super deep-cut Easter eggs for all this. You have to imagine his early days at Marvel Studios, thinking back just a couple years prior to working with Hugh Jackman, thinking, one day I'm going to bring Wolverine onto an Avengers team. Obviously now in present day, if we see Hugh Jackman in the MCU, it's going to have to be during Secret Wars because he said he's pretty much retired from that character, although I do have hopes that he will return for a cameo someday. So when they do debut a new version of Wolverine, it'll be a new actor that they'll recast. Everybody post your theories in the comments. How is Marvel going to introduce X-Men in the MCU during Marvel Phase 4, Marvel Phase 5? And like I said, I will do a giveaway for that giant Infinity Saga box set when we get closer to them actually releasing it. I'm still working on a video about Quicksilver coming back. I'll try to post that in the next couple of days. Everybody click here for my Venom 2 teaser, including new Spider-Man crossover news, and click here for my Avengers Fantastic Four teaser video. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.